Something is happening in Las Vegas right now, and I'm not sure the rest of the NFL has actually noticed yet. I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because I've spent enough summers doing this, watching film, reading reports, stress testing the hype, to know the difference between a good story and a real one. And right now, what's coming out of that Raiders facility is passing every test I throw at it. Let me be upfront with you. Every July, I force myself to stop. I sit back and genuinely interrogate whatever I think I'm seeing, because I've watched this cycle destroy good analysts. A quarterback looks crisp in walkthroughs. A lineman remakes his body over the winter. A skill position guy shows up to camp transformed. Different mindset, different frame, different energy. And every single person inside that building swears this is finally the year. I've seen that script run its course more times than I can count. July optimism is completely free. It costs nothing. It has also been catastrophically wrong, at franchise after franchise, year after year. So when I tell you that what I'm seeing from the Raiders right now is different, I need you to understand the full weight of that sentence. Not because the narrative is appealing, not because Las Vegas deserves a winner or the fan base has been waiting long enough, because when I actually go looking for the cracks in this story, I can't find them. And in July, that almost never happens. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with Fernando Mendoza. There's a version of this Raiders season that simply doesn't exist without him at the center of it. The physical conversation gets rushed past in most evaluations, and I think that's a real mistake because the specifics matter in ways people don't fully appreciate until November. 6'5", north of 230, long arms. A frame structurally engineered for what an NFL season actually does to a human being. Not what September looks like, but what December demands. I've spent years these weren't built for that sustained violence. The hits come. The season stacks. Something subtle shifts. Their eyes start processing the rush before it fully develops. Their decision-making begins running slightly behind where it needs to be. That erosion is quiet at first. By the time it becomes visible on the scoreboard, it's deeply embedded. Mendoza was built to absorb and redirect that punishment in a way that protects his processing. It won't announce itself in his September stat line. It will absolutely show up in December when the games mean everything. Now, the arm. I want to give this the completely honest treatment it deserves. The pre-draft skepticism around Mendoza's velocity came from scouts I genuinely respect. Their concern wasn't invented. NFL windows close fast, and the margin on timing throws is essentially zero. Would his arm hold up against that reality? What early camp reporting tells me is that those concerns, while legitimate, were probably overstated in their real-world consequences. Mendoza is not going to challenge safeties with pure heat. That's just the honest version of the truth. But what he will consistently do, what the reporting shows he's doing right now in that facility, is deliver the ball accurately, on rhythm, into every window Kubiak's system generates. In the right offensive architecture, a quarterback who processes faster than almost everyone in his class and throws on time is more valuable than a cannon arm attached to ordinary instincts. The Raiders didn't accidentally build a system around what Mendoza is. When that marriage works, and everything I'm reading says it's working, the arm velocity conversation starts revealing itself for what it probably always was, slightly beside the actual point. But I keep coming back to one detail no combined number could ever capture. Fernando Mendoza turned down a White House invitation. Sit with that. This is the first overall pick in the entire NFL draft. For months, the debate raged over whether he deserved that selection. Then an invitation arrives, one that would have generated legitimate national coverage, that any PR operation in sports would immediately say yes to. His answer was to decline and go throw additional routes at the facility instead. Nobody tells a first overall pick to do that. That decision came entirely from inside Mendoza, a clear-eyed understanding of exactly where he stands and what this summer demands. That single choice tells me more about who this person is than every hour of film I've watched on him. And it doesn't stop there. Reports describe him arriving before official practice windows even open, taking snaps with center Tyler Linderbaum, under center, from the gun, working through footwork and communication in a system both of them are learning simultaneously. Nobody required those reps. Nobody scheduled them. He is building the foundation in the quiet hours because he understands that the moments determining outcomes in November don't pause while you figure out if you're ready. The quarterback competition around him demands honesty. Kirk Cousins is trending toward a Week 1 start, and before the immediate reaction sets in, the deliberate, protected approach to Mendoza's introduction is not organizational cowardice. It reflects one of the most clearly documented lessons in recent NFL history. The Darnold situation sits with me whenever this comes up. A quarterback with real ability thrown into structural chaos before any foundation existed beneath him, forced to build compensatory habits in a losing environment, his career nearly exhausted before 25. The takeaway isn't that he was always going to find his footing eventually. The takeaway is that developmental timelines require genuine protection, and organizations that abandon that protection under public pressure pay costs that only become visible long after the irreversible damage is done. That said, my position is straightforward. If Mendoza goes through full camp evaluation and demonstrates he is ready to operate in this system from week 1, the decision has to be to start him. And when that decision gets made, the organizational commitment behind it has to be real and durable. A minimum of 10 games before any serious recalibration enters the conversation. Not 5, not 3 difficult outings followed by a panic retreat to the veteran. 10 games. Because anything shorter isn't a developmental evaluation. It's a panic window dressed up as one. There is another story happening in Las Vegas that isn't getting the attention it deserves, and it runs through the secondary. Jermaine L. McCoy, selected at pick 101, is practicing. The knee is responding. There were scouts who believed that if McCoy had stayed healthy through the entire draft process, he was the most likely player to be the first cornerback off the board in the entire class. The Raiders got him in the 4th round. If that knee holds, and current reporting says the trajectory is exactly right, this franchise may have found a potential cornerstone corner at a fraction of his actual market value. That kind of asset acquisition is what separates organizations that build sustained contenders from those always one bad draft away from collapse. Trayvon Stokes is generating attention that has real substance behind it, not the generic "he looks comfortable out there" noise attached to every player every summer. What I'm reading describes elite closing speed, a genuine appetite for run support, and the movement fluidity to hold up in coverage space. That combination at the box safety position has been a gaping structural hole in this defense for years. When you hold the current secondary against what the Raiders were fielding 2 or 3 seasons ago, a group that functioned as an open invitation anytime an opposing quarterback targeted it, the transformation is not incremental. The 3rd and 4th corners on this roster are legitimate NFL players. That was simply not true for a long time, and the league's quarterbacks knew it. Here's the thought I can't get past: what this secondary transformation means specifically for Maxx Crosby. Crosby has been one of the most genuinely disruptive edge rushers in this league for years, and he has been doing it behind a secondary that quietly undermined every snap he played. Think about it from a quarterback's perspective. When you know the coverage can't hold, when scrambling feels like a safe and available escape, you don't panic when Crosby wins the edge. You feel it, you move, you live. All that dominance translates into hurries that vanish from the box score and sack numbers that don't reflect what actually happened. Now give that same pass rusher a secondary that forces quarterbacks to hold the football, that makes scrambling feel genuinely dangerous, and everything Crosby already does becomes exponentially more consequential. The Raiders are building that combination for the first time in his professional career. That story has the potential to define the second half of this season in ways most people aren't fully pricing in. In the receiver room, Malik Benson is earning trust the right way, with a clean release off the line and route precision that builds genuine confidence in a young quarterback's mind. Those aren't traits that generate highlight packages, but they are the exact traits that make a quarterback want to come back to you in 3rd and 7 when the game is real. Dante Thornton carries a physical profile that makes experienced scouts reach for historical comparisons they don't distribute casually. The wingspan, the speed, the frame, it's all there. But measurables don't run routes. They don't make contested catches against professionals who've studied your tendencies for months. Thornton has to translate that ceiling into consistent execution, and this camp will tell us how far along that translation actually is. The receiver I genuinely keep returning to is E.J. Williams, and not for reasons that appear in traditional evaluation frameworks. Williams played alongside Mendoza at Indiana. That means the timing between them wasn't assembled from scratch over 6 weeks of training camp. It was built through hundreds of real competitive repetitions inside a college offense both players understood deeply. There's an almost intuitive quality to the connection between a quarterback and a receiver who have truly logged time together. The ball moving before the route fully breaks. The relationship operating below the level of conscious processing. That kind of chemistry cannot be manufactured in a summer. You either have it or you don't. Williams and Mendoza have it. Current reports suggest that if he ended up on the practice squad, multiple franchises would immediately call to claim him. That is not a player a franchise with real intentions can afford to lose. The schedule just came out, and I'll give you the completely honest version of both sides. The frustrating part is easy. The Raiders received 0 primetime assignments. Not one Monday night slot, no Thursday window. The league's broadcasting office was candid. They don't know when or whether Mendoza starts, and they aren't allocating primetime to a franchise until they believe an audience wants to watch. What concerns me more is the rest differential. The Raiders rank third worst in the entire NFL in net rest advantage, minus 13.5 across the season, nearly a full day less recovery per game than their opponents on average. That sounds like scheduling noise until you've watched what a full NFL season does to a roster's physical condition. The gap between 3 days of recovery and 6 is the gap between 90% and 75. That compounds across 17 weeks in ways that appear on the field long before they show up on the injury report. Here is how I see the wins breaking down. Opening week at home against Miami. Raiders win. The Dolphins are in genuine organizational transition, and a Week 1 home game is the soft landing this offense needs. The early road trip against the Chargers goes to LA. The Saints game, Las Vegas handles. Against Kansas City, you split. 1 win, 1 loss, because you are not sweeping Mahomes while your quarterback situation is still actively developing. The Patriots in early October. Raiders take it. If things break right through 5 weeks, this team could sit at 4-1. The Bills and Rams are genuine tests, and I think the Raiders drop both. The Jets in full tank mode is a game Las Vegas cannot afford to surrender, and I think they get it. San Francisco, I'll take the Raiders. Seattle without their coordinator is winnable. Denver at altitude on the road, I'll call that a loss. The Browns game might be the single most consequential decision point of the entire season, not just on the scoreboard, but organizationally. If the Raiders arrive there at 6-4 or 5-5 with Cousins operating an offense that looks functional but not genuinely dangerous, that is the exact moment this coaching staff makes the switch. Walking out of that game into the bye at 7-5 with Mendoza having just engineered a victory, let that scenario play out in your head. After the bye, the schedule lightens enough that a push to 9 or 10 wins is not wishful thinking. 9 or 10 wins in year 1 of a new staff, with a rookie quarterback finding real traction in the second half. That is a franchise-defining statement about where this thing is actually going. What I keep returning to is the specific combination of elements the Raiders have assembled. A secondary that transformed from organizational liability to legitimate competitive threat in a single offseason. A pass rush anchored by one of the most disruptive defenders in the sport, who now, for the first time in his career, has real coverage working behind him. An offensive system built by coaches who understand that honoring a player's actual developmental arc produces more durable value than extracting short-term production and absorbing the consequences later. And at the center of all of it, a first overall pick who turned down a White House invitation and went to throw extra routes instead, who showed up before practice started to take snaps, nobody scheduled and nobody required, who is not waiting for his moment to be handed to him. That is who the Las Vegas Raiders just built their entire future around. The open questions are real. This league has a way of humbling certainty fast. But the foundation underneath this thing, the character, the system, the personnel, that is not a story that breaks the moment you press on it. That is something that holds. And in July, after all these years, that still surprises me when I find it.